They believe in bad spirits. They believe in sort of making deals with Crocodile. So many of the times I'd be like, how can we cross this? And they're like, you're good to cross it. We've made a deal with the croc. And I'm
whoa.
like, what do you mean you made it?
Hold on.
They genuinely believe that.
I want to see the clauses on this contract.
Exactly.
I want to see what type
Has
of
he
deal.
signed it?
Yeah, let's see his
He's
signature.
got his just a paw print in mud.
Yeah.
What is a paw? What?
Yeah.
Claw thing?
Yeah.
But what was hard about that is you felt like the stupid one. Because even your guide was like, oh,
Yeah, that makes sense.
sound, he
You're the one that doesn't
looking at him.
understand. They're like, what, mate? You don't know about a fucking croc signing the contract, you idiot.
yeah, exactly.
It's a completely different world, I guess, right?
completely different. And I'm just like, I'm not fucking crossing that croc.
But
So you had got to this river
Yeah.
and you needed to cross it some way. They've
Yeah.
obviously told you, look, it's infested with crocs.
Yeah.
but we sorted
And
it.
that it's safe to go. I couldn't.
You couldn't, yeah.
I couldn't. I think sometimes they were unsure, or maybe they knew there were crocs, but they felt confident that it'd be fine. So they would tell me there's no crocs, and then I would follow their lead. And that's fine because they go first. But oftentimes I would just be like, come on, let's not be stupid here.
Yeah.
Murky waters, you can't see a thing, I
can't see a
imagine.
thing.
So it's just like, you're just kind of like winging it, like, that contract better stand up.
Yeah.
Like, it's
And they
praying.
really believed it. Yeah, we've made a deal. We will leave the crocs alone, and the crocs promise to leave us alone. I'm just like, yeah, that doesn't make sense, does it now?
Maybe they're onto something.
No,
we
but,
just don't
but this is what I'm saying. Like, I mean, you
They
mentioned
live
that-
amongst them,
Yeah,
right?
they live amongst them, right? You mentioned there's that like 90% of just stuff that we'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And like, look, yeah, obviously the idea of a contract or a deal being made with the crocs, but if you really are living in close proximity,
Yeah.
you imagine that they must have a deep understanding of these animals and
Somewhere,
the
yeah.
way they operate. And while, you know, I suppose it's easy for us to look and be like, what the hell is that? You know, I'm sure if people had gone in there and they kept getting eaten or something, then they'd gone, right, you broke the contract. But there must be some level of something going on where
Yeah.
it did.
So
But you're like,
You've got to bend to their ways slightly
Yes.
when you're out there for sure. And that was the thing I always asked was, when was the last person eating here? And if normally it was within the year, and it's that what put me off. It was like, oh, kids were playing, but they were kids, they didn't know, and they went to the wrong section, not the right section. So that is also true, but it's a case of like, oh
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
be.
So
You never know when you're
built
next.
that you built that raft. What does the raft look like? Is it you and the guide that decide to build
Yeah.
this thing then?
Yeah, that wasn't for that time. So normally there's 3 ways to cross rivers that have crocs, and it's cross where there's locals, because as you say, they live there. They can point you roughly in the right direction of unless there's no crocs and they're like the territory of the croc is further that way. Second option is to cross where there's white water or rapids, because the crocs don't have their territory there. And the third option, the painful one, is to build a raft, because that takes about 4 hours. So we're building the raft here, and it's made up of bamboo and bamboo leaves.
Yeah.
Takes a while, you know, you don't want it to fall apart midway across the river.
Yeah, so you've got to build at least a half sturdy one.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you've got to have trust in each other as well to make sure that they have tied their knots right and that it just doesn't start dismantling, you know? And so,
Yeah, so
and that's
so the
you doing it there.
yeah, that's
So the
it.
raft is
But
big
you're
enough
not-
for 2, right?
You're the video that I can see there in the footage.
Yeah.
That's you just holding on to something and kicking your legs.
Yeah.
So you didn't build it like you're not rowing across this thing.
No, we're like,
So the
on
crocs, if they wanted a human leg, like
if they were, yeah, so we wouldn't step on a croc. So a croc normally doesn't want much to do with a human.
okay,
If you were to step on a croc, it would get defensive, and it could like rip your leg off or break your leg with a swipe of its tail.
yeah,
And so that was the main concern, not necessarily that they
would
might
come
be,
up to you.
although they are Nile crocs. So but normally, yeah, at the sight of a human and loud noise, they would go away. But sometimes they wouldn't go away until it's too late and you've already stepped on them. So the methodology here was to try to not step on a croc and just sort of hover above, because there might have been crocs below us, and as long as we're not bothering them, they're just like, yeah, whatever. This guy's
Are they scared of splashing water then? Is that why?
yeah, as well. So normally you can throw sticks, you can throw rocks to try to clear them off and clear them away, which
Okay.
we were doing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is with this, it was the cyclone season, and we just didn't know how deep that river was. So we were just like, right, just to be sure, And then with the rucksacks as well. Like, I think the scariest thing, what happened was not necessarily the Gobi Desert or the malaria. I've been allowing people to join me, and I need to stop because it gets reckless. I allowed this girl who was like Lara Croft, nails, you know, a lot of sort of experience in the Amazon, and she joined us up north for 2 weeks. And it was the cyclone season. We had summited all of the highest mountains. We were kind of like, it was the home run, if you like. And it was nighttime. We'd been pasted by the cyclone, and we came across the Mavav River. And this river I was not looking forward to for at least a few weeks now at this point. And it was the worst time to cross it because we just shouldn't have been in the mountains during the cyclone season. And so it was at full flow. But however, there was another storm coming, and we thought, as soon as that storm hits, this river will go from like 10% crossable to like absolutely no chance. So I had to cross it. We had to get over it that night. And by the time we had arrived at it, there was a local, and the locals know the rivers best, who was sat there hoping that people would come by. And he was sat there for 4 to 5 hours trying to get home, which is the other side of this river, but far in the distant miles of walking. And he said, to cross this river, we form a human chain, and you must watch exactly my stepping, because he knows all of the rocks off by heart, because it's murky waters, enough to keep your head above the water. He was like, if you miss it, not only is it nighttime, and not only is it the weight of your rucksack that will pull you down, if you're lucky enough to not to get trapped or not to bang your head on the rocks, it's crocodile infested as well, further down. You have to watch my exact footing. So we did. We debated it, whether we should stay the night. We were back and forth. A little bit of arguing that night, whether we should face upstream or downstream. And anyway, we attempted it. And Suzanne was in the grasp of mine and Max's hands. We were crossing this river. The roar of the river was so loud that we had to shout to hear each other. And it was complete pitch black. So we've just got head torches shining in each other's eyes. And we're following this guy's footsteps exactly, you know, and we're like even feeling it. And the rucksacks at this point are like 25 to 35 kilograms each, depending. And Suzanne missed her footing, and she then dropped. She was in the grasp of mine and Max's hands. We were now being pulled off. She was kicking up from the bottom of the floor because she was completely under now. She was kicking up from the bed of the river, coming up for a breather, and then the rucksack would just rip it back down. And it was at that point, with her constantly pushing off the bottom, coming up for breaths, that I realised, if we let her go now, if something happens, that's it. And it's not my life, it's someone else's life under my clock, under my responsibility. And we don't know how we did it. There must have been some good faith with us that day, but we managed to just stay on form with the grip. She managed to get her knee on a rock, push up, and we fucking all crossed it, and we don't even know how. So she was in bits, collapsing on the other side. I was like full of adrenaline, you know, whoa, which probably didn't help. I couldn't believe we made it.
Yeah.
I was like, no way did we got lucky there. We shouldn't have all made it across.
And so was that, you mentioned there about not bringing anyone on, is it for that reason, that moment that you felt when you were crossing it, of like, it's somebody else here, that it's under my not necessarily my fault and my responsibility per se, because everyone's responsible for themselves, but at the end of the day, it is on your journey, on all this. So is this a new thing that you've sort of said, like, just nobody's joining me for this anymore? Or
yeah, it is.
What is it?
That was a lesson that I should have listened to, but I didn't listen to that lesson. And I opened up Mission Yangtze, and 10 people were all evacuated who tried to keep up on that journey. And that's when I realized that sometimes you don't know how far you've come until you see people trying to keep up, trying to do. And that's the same with any industry, with any career, with you boys as well. Sometimes you won't see how far you've progressed until you see someone sort of join you or try to start a business that you've gone through all of the processes and they're new to it. And effectively what would happen is I would allow people to join me thinking, yeah, this is fine. You know, he's ex-military. He's hardened to altitude. He knows about bears and wolves. He knows about -20, -30 degrees Celsius. And then like, boom, they're being evacuated, fear of the wildlife or injury or altitude sickness, bleeding from the nose, vomiting, and 16 different individuals in terms of National Geographic film crew to guides were all evacuated within the first 2 months. And that's when
So what do you think the difference is?
I don't know if it's the experience or if it's being mentally more prepared or if it's with how serious I take these trips. So I put in that physical training. But I would just have people sort of join and they would see the photos on Instagram and think, wow, this looks beautiful. I'd love to join you. And then I was just like, yeah, man, I could do with the company. Come and join me. And they were hit by the harsh reality of, oh, wow, this is shit. This is hard.
Yeah.
It looks great on Instagram.
Yeah. Got the sunset in your picture on top of the mountain, but they don't realize what you've gone through to get to that moment.
Yeah, exactly that. And, so Mongolia was the one that scared me the most, even though the others were bigger. So with Mongolia, I didn't know myself. I could sit there from my couch and judge the previous guy who had attempted it and be like, yeah, I just do this, or yeah, I just do that. But until I was actually there facing it, I genuinely didn't know how I would react to being hunted by wolves or dehydration or sandstorms or snow blizzards, to have no one, no van, no nothing with me. I genuinely didn't know what the loneliness and vulnerable state of myself at that point would act. But that also bugged me. I was kind of like, I can't go through life not knowing I have to go out there, I have to do Mongolia, even if I die trying.